Hello, and welcome to Stories from the View, a podcast from the Pleasant View Senior Center in East Longmeadow, Massachusetts. On this podcast, we invite East Longmeadow residents to tell us stories about their lives and events. And today's guest is Steve Graham. He's a local entrepreneur, and he's from the Depot and Graham Central Station. And here's your host, Mary Jenowin Kaplan.
Thank you, Eric. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Mary.
Thanks for coming today. We're excited to hear about all of your projects.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So tell us, have you always been from East Longmeadow? How did this all start?
Well, haven't been from East Longmeadow from the start. Actually, I grew up in New Jersey and came up to the Springfield area to take a job with Monsanto many years ago. And then married a Springfield girl, my wife Jean, and we have 3 daughters, and we moved to East Longmeadow right at the start of their schooling, and have been here for the last 35 plus years. Not sure, but something like that.
Wonderful. That's great. So tell us about your involvement in the town. You've been involved in so many important and interesting projects. And you mentioned the schools, so let's talk about your work with the
Educational Endowment Fund.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, better known as eLeaf. eLeaf is a fund that was started by parents, and it's coming up on its 30th year anniversary, which is really something that I think is wonderful. Jean and I started it with the idea that every top educational institution in America has an endowment. And so why not the public schools? And it's not the most unique idea, but there was nothing that existed around here. And so we got a few parents together, and we started this idea of getting contributions into a fund that would grow and provide money each year to teachers and would operate outside of the school system. And, it was a tough start, but we got it off the ground, and today it stands at over $1 million in principal balance.
Oh, my.
Yes.
That's significant.
That's significant. And it has contributed hundreds of thousands of dollars to the schools, to the teachers directly. They submit grants, and then a committee decides which ones get funded. So the idea is that it'll just keep growing and become more and more significant for every generation of kids to come.
So how do you raise $1 million in 30 years?
It's
a
not
lot
easy.
of ice cream.
Yeah, well, it's not us. I mean, we stepped out of the picture after 10 years. So the parents that came after us deserve a lot of credit.
Mm-hmm.
Brendan Greeley is the president now. He has young children, and as long as dedicated parents continue to step forward every couple years, this thing could go on indefinitely. And there are fundraisers. The organization has annual fundraisers every year, and people contribute money during the year as well. There's banquets, and there's a golf tournament, and there's things of that nature. So,
sounds like you gave them a great foundation to start with the first 10 years. And the good people of East Longmeadow are stepping up and continuing it.
yeah, it's when you think about anything lasting for decades, it's unusual, and especially a volunteer organization that starts from scratch and really depends on people coming forward each and every year. But what I look forward to, hopefully before I disappear, is that it hits the $10 million mark. That would really be something.
Take that challenge, people of East Longmeadow. $10 million mark. That's great.
Yeah, think of what it could do for the schools, really.
Absolutely. Can you just give us a couple of for instances of what a teacher might ask for?
Well, I haven't been involved in the grant
Yeah,
process in many years.
You have to use your,
but,
like your
you know,
historical knowledge.
it could be something for a computer lab. It could be one or more computers that is not in the budget for whatever reason, and the teacher thinks that if we can get some additional computers, or it could be for a science lab, it could be anything that has a lasting effect on the students. So the idea is that it would affect the maximum students for the maximum amount of time versus a one-shot deal.
What an important and valuable project. Good for you. However, that was not your most rewarding job in the schools. So do you recall, you shared with us a little bit about your background, what you noted as your most rewarding job? This is like a test.
Yeah, I've done a number of things that would be classified as work. But the job that I had that was the most fun in my life to date was coaching the high school wrestling team.
Oh,
And that occurred. I actually volunteered for about 4 or 5 years, and just before the wrestling season started in the 6th year, the coach left the school system, and so the AD asked me if I would do it, and I reluctantly said yes. I'll do it for 1 year and give you time to find a coach. I think it was 6 years later and 3 ADs later, I was still there. But coaching the kids at the high school level was absolutely the most fun I've had doing anything. And they keep you young. They're happy most of the time. The sport of wrestling is a special sport, and seeing the kids come in as freshmen, and we used to have a rule that for every meet you had to wear a shirt and tie. So they would come in as freshmen and they wouldn't know how to put their tie on because we would have weigh-ins at the high school in the morning. And so I would show the kids how to tie their ties, and by the end of a couple years, they were showing the next group of kids how to do the ties.
oh, that's great.
But just see the development of a high school student from freshman to senior year, and the maturity, and their change is so great in that period of time. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Well, and the benefit and value of sports for students is well documented. And it must have been so cool to see them you saw several groups cycle through in that time.
Yeah, we did. And, in high school, especially for boys, the impact the coach can have on them is sometimes they'll listen to a coach before they'll listen to their parent. So it's the difference in some cases of kids actually staying in school and not staying in school. And we had a couple of examples of kids who really turned around in school, and I think it was a result of wrestling. And many of the kids, I think, really benefited from the sport. So it was great to see.
Goosebumps. That's but so true. So absolutely true. The power of one person in influencing young people. So what have you done lately, Steve?
Well, I think most people are aware the train depot, and Gene and I turned that into a ice cream shop and a cafe called the Depot at Graham Central Station. And so that's sort of the latest project. It it's been a lot more work than I thought it would be, but it is a lot of fun. And we've been able to accumulate a fair amount of property adjacent to the depot property. And long term, we're hoping to perhaps build some condos and some more commercial space and maybe some apartments and create a walking community within the downtown area. That's always been sort of the grand vision. Whether we get to that point remains to be seen, but in the interim, we put a little train in for the kids, although adults can ride it too, and they do, but we're having a lot of fun with it.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because before our guests come, I always try to do a little bit of research. And usually it happens in the internet, but I will admit we went and had ice cream and so enjoyed. You've got a cool playground for kids. Children of all ages were hula hooping. It's a community gathering place, and it's more than ice cream, right? There's food there.
There is food there. And Mary, I think you were eyeing that hula hoop, so next time we get you out there.
With the advent of cell phones and videos, I'm not stepping out here.
But yes, we have breakfast sandwiches and lunch sandwiches, and of course ice cream all the time. But it's right next to the rail trail, so you have moms with the babies and the toddlers and stopping by, and it's a lot of fun. It's a nice place. We have a lot of room, and we're doing a couple different things this year that include a coffee and cars and coffee the first Sunday of every month.
Which is Cars and Coffee.
People who have old cars bring them in. It's like a cruise morning
night,
instead of cruise night.
Yeah.
So they just drive in with their cars and park their cars for a couple hours, and the public gets a chance to look at some really neat cars and have a coffee or a Danish or a breakfast sandwich, whatever they want.
Not a bad way to start a Sunday morning.
Yeah. And then we're going to get a farmer's market started this year with a little help from the senior center. And that's going to run every Saturday beginning June 1st and running through August.
That is such a wonderful opportunity for our town. We have farms in town, and but we haven't had the senior center's done a small farmers market for a couple of years now. So tell us, can you share some coming attractions for the farmers market? What can I buy there, Steve?
Well, I will say that it is very tough getting the farmers and vendors in general.
They're busy in the summer.
It's busy. Farmers are short-staffed, and they many of them have committed to other markets. We got a little bit of a late start this year, but that said, our goal initially was to have at least 12 vendors of sorts selling, and it looks like we're there as of today.
That's huge.
And we still have 2 weeks to recruit more. I'm happy to report that Meadowbrook corn will be available in July.
Whoa!
Thanks to John, the owner.
Best corn ever.
We do have what I would call sort of an anchor farm that will have all kinds of vegetables. They'll be there from the start. That's a farm called Granny's Place, which isn't in East Long Meadow, but it's in Agawam. And we've got a microgreens farm from East Long Meadow, and a bunch of others that have committed. So we're hustling. But if anybody out there knows any farmers that can help us,
Calling farmers.
yeah, let us know. And the other thing that we're offering the farmers to help with the staffing is we have some volunteers, including some from the senior center and the community at large, that have agreed to staff their booths if they don't have the people to staff the booth. 'Cause
Thinking outside the box again.
yeah,
That's
it's
wonderful.
tough. It's tough for them. So I think this year, it's going to be tough. We got to get vendors, then we got to get the consumers to show up to make it worthwhile for the vendors. So it'll take a couple years to really get it rolling, but it would be so much fun to have a vibrant farmers market in town on a weekend, I think. So
That would be wonderful. Microgreens. I'm going to have to go and figure out what that is.
Yeah, right. Figure that out. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's circle back just a little bit because I was impressed when you go inside the depot. It's a little historical homage to the history. So I guess I would say you don't really do things halfway, Steve. Tell us about how you've sort of representing the history of the depot and a little bit about the great pictures in the story.
well, I have to give credit to Bruce Moore from the Historical Society because Bruce was very generous in supplying some photos and letters and things like that we were able to make copies of and have blown up and put on the walls. But the depot dates back to 1876, and it's never been moved. It's in the same place that it always was. It stopped running trains probably in the 70s, maybe. Community feed was housed there, and the trains would come and bring all kinds of products for community feed to sell. And one of the things that you can read on the board there is on one of the sliding doors. We kept the original sliding doors from the depot. They're massive doors that weigh a ton because we had to take them off when we were doing the renovation. But on one of the doors, we blew up a letter, and the letter is very hard to read for people today because it makes reference to something that most of us aren't familiar with. But the essence of the letter is it's about a coal delivery that was made to the depot, and it's kind of a neat letter to read and try to interpret. And we have some pictures. We have they called them the Swedish gang of railroad workers who actually laid the track and dug the trenches with picks and shovels. And this is kind of a interesting piece. The gentleman who was the general contractor was Tim Redden. And Tim is from this area. He now lives in Hamden with his wife. And his wife's Janet. And Janet was helping us with some decorations. Well, after we finished all the renovations, we got this picture of the Swedish gang from the Historical Society. Tim and Janet are looking at it, and they said, I think that guy 3 from the right is a relative. And they went back, and they checked the old photos. And sure enough, one of the people who was holding a pick and a shovel that built the tracks was their relative. And so it's been fun when things like that happen. And there's a whole bunch of people who have come into the depot and said, gee, I remember when, and then we hear the story. And I thought it would be kind of nice if I could get them to write the stories down and we could put a little notebook in and just leave it in the depot for people to read, but I haven't got to that point yet.
Yeah, well, you have a few projects going.
Yeah.
We have had Bruce Moore here, and he has referenced the depot, and we had Jimmy Rintoul, who just it's tickled pink that, this is part of our town history that's preserved in an unusual way.
Well, I've got a nice picture of Jim and his dad who bought the place from the railroad in the depot. And yeah, it was really fun chatting with Jim and getting him back there a couple times and hearing some of his stories. But Bruce also gave us, it's called a whistle stop. And a whistle stop is a big concrete marker that stands about 6 feet high and probably weighs 750 pounds, and it has a big W on it. And the whistle stop was laying in the backyard of the Historical Society. They didn't know what to do with it because it's so large. And he said, "Steve, do you want this?" And he had to explain it to me because I didn't know what it was either. And so I said, once he told me, it was a whistle stop used on the line. So when the train would come to a crossing or it was approaching, it was the whistle stop. They had to blow the horn, and that's what a whistle stop is. And so we put that over at the depot, and I'm actually going to have to relocate it because we want it in a little more prominent place. But there's a few things like that are really neat over there.
How exciting. And you do seem to be involved in a number of other events you've created. I have heard your Whoville Christmas event is popular.
Yeah, we had a couple moms. I have to give credit to a couple moms who approached us and said, "Gee, you're closing the ice cream shop down in October, but that's too early. We want to do a event here called Whoville." And so that they did a marvelous job, and it was very popular. So once we put the train in, we kind of converted it to the Polar Express.
Of course.
And
Because why not?
and we've done it 2 years now. Last year it was really something. We were overwhelmed. We did not understand how popular it could be, and I think on a Saturday we gave 1,000 train rides, which is a lot of train rides. So
Six Flags beware. You got competition.
Yeah. So what we're going to do this year, we've added a couple locomotives to the car barn. So this year for the Polar Express, we're going to make sure we can handle the crowd.
I'm speechless. That's just so cool. What fun. And your upcoming big event is, of course, this farmers market, which is so seasonal and so wonderful. I can't wait to go and check it out. Anything else that we've missed that you want to throw in there? You're obviously a man of many ideas.
No, I think we've covered enough for the morning.
I think we're going to have to put this on the welcome wagon for new residents in East Long Meadow. We are a growing community, and I hope, and I've only been here 15 years, but I hope the new people in town can appreciate everything that we have in town that is really such a resource and a gem for families and people of all ages. So any parting words, any call to action, Steve?
Well, it would be great to see as many people as possible support the farmers market, because the only way we'll be able to keep farmers is if they
Sure.
get enough
And when
business.
will the farmers market be starting?
The farmers market will start June 1st, the first Saturday,
Okay.
and it'll be every Saturday through the summer. It runs 9 to 1.
Okay. Yeah, that's
9 to 1.
exciting. Yeah.
Will the train be running when the farmers market is running?
Oh yeah, the train will be running for sure. For
And
sure.
that's perfect, so they can bring the kids and ride themselves if they choose, because you said adults can also ride.
Adults can ride. Yeah.
Pick up your produce, grab lunch or an ice cream, and that sounds great. Thank you so much.
And for people who aren't aware, what's the address of
Good question.
Graham Central Station?
It's 64 Maple Street in East Long Meadow, right across from the Dunkin' Donuts, if you don't know anything else about the Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay.
A very good competitor, I might add.
I'm going to say, yes, you can get your coffee at the depot also, right?
That's right.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Steve. We appreciate it. That wraps up another episode of Stories from the View. So thanks to Steve Graham for being here today. The Stories from the View podcast is available on the LCAT 01028 channel on YouTube and on Spotify. If you have a story you'd like to share on the program, contact Pleasant View Senior Center Director Aaron Kobler by stopping by the Pleasant View Senior Center and by calling Aaron at 413-525-5436, extension 1401, or you can send Aaron an email, aaron.kobler@eastlongmeadowma.gov. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Stories from the View.